All right, let's talk about those moments in business. The ones that can make or break a company. Making those huge calls is always packed with risk, right? So the big question is, how can technology actually help us make smarter decisions when the stakes are sky high? We're going to dive in and figure that out.
Really think about it for a second. What does it take to launch a brand new product? Or break into a new market? Or heck, just optimize a global supply chain? These are not your everyday gut feel calls. No way. You've got to sift through just mountains of data, try to predict the future, and weigh what feels like a million different variables. And that, right there, is the core challenge that pretty much every organization is up against today. Okay, so first things first, we have to get on the same page about something really important. Not all decisions are created equal. There's a huge difference between the routine, day-to-day stuff and those truly game-changing calls.
So, on one side, you've got what we call structured decisions. Think of things like reordering inventory when it gets low. It's routine, it follows a set of rules, pretty straightforward, right? But then you have the unstructured decisions, and whoa, these are the big ones. They're super complex, there's no playbook, and they really come down to a manager's experience and judgment. And that is exactly where things get tricky and where we could all use a little help. So, to handle these massive, unstructured problems, what managers really need is, well, a powerful co-pilot, not something that's going to take the controls, but something that's there to assist. So let's go ahead and meet the hero of this story. It's called a Decision Support System, or DSS for short. And what is it, really? Well, at its core, it's a computer system that pulls together three key things: data, powerful analytical models, and a really easy-to-use interface. And its entire reason for being? To help managers get a handle on those messy, unstructured problems we were just talking about. The best way to wrap your head around a DSS is to stick with that co-pilot analogy. The manager, they are always in the pilot seat. They make the final call, period. The DSS is that brilliant system sitting right next to them, crunching the numbers, running what-if scenarios, and feeding them the critical insights they need to navigate through the storm. And this is key. It's there to support human judgment, never ever to replace it. So how does this actually play out in the real world? Well, the DSS basically guides a manager through a very structured four-phase journey. Let's break down exactly how this co-pilot helps out at every stage of the flight. Okay, let's get into how this actually works. Phase 1. The journey kicks off with what's called the intelligence phase. And no, this isn't about how smart the system is. Think of it more like military intelligence. It's all about gathering information. The very first step is just figuring out what the heck the problem or opportunity even is. So in this phase, the GSS is kind of like this incredibly powerful radar. It's constantly scanning everything, both inside and outside the company, using things like data mining to really understand the landscape. And here's the cool part. It can actually send up a flare, an alert, to flag potential issues way before they blow up into major problems. All right, so once you know what the problem is, it's time to move on to the design phase. This is where you start brainstorming potential solutions and really sketching out a blueprint for how to move forward. And this is where the DSS turns into a virtual laboratory. It helps managers come up with all these different courses of action and then analyze them. You can use these incredible tools for simulation and scenario planning to ask all those what-if questions. What if we did this? What if that happened? And you can see the potential outcomes of every single alternative, all without any of the real-world risk. How cool is that? Okay, now we've reached a fork in the road. This is the choice phase. You've looked at all the options, you've run the scenarios, now it's time to actually pick one. This is where the DSS really helps you make a choice that's rational and based on facts, not just a gut feeling. It gives you tools like decision matrices to weigh every single option against your key criteria, things like cost, risk, and potential payoff. And with clear charts and visualizations, the best path forward often it just pops right out at you. But listen, a great choice doesn't mean anything if you don't act on it. So that brings us to the final and maybe most critical step, implementation. This is all about putting that decision into motion and making sure it actually works. And remember, our co-pilot, its job is definitely not done once the plane is in the air. During this implementation phase, the DSS is constantly monitoring the results using things like performance dashboards and reports. This creates this awesome feedback loop, so you can see if the decision is actually hitting its goals. And if it's not, you've got the data to make course corrections along the way. So we've seen what a DSS does, which is pretty impressive. But how does it do it? Let's pop the hood for a minute and take a quick look at the core components that make all of this magic happen.
Basically, a decision support system is built on 4 key pillars that all have to work together perfectly. You've got the data management, the model management, the user interface, and a knowledge-based system. Let's see what each one does. First up, you have the data management subsystem. The easiest way to think about this is like the system's giant library. It's the part that stores and manages all the data, whether it's from inside the company or from outside sources. Its job is to make sure all that information is accurate, consistent, and ready to be used.
Next, we have the model management subsystem. If the data is the library, this is the system's toolbox. It's packed with all the powerful analytical models you could need. Statistical models, forecasting models, you name it. This is the part that takes all that raw data from the library and actually turns it into useful insight.
Third is the user interface. And this is the cockpit. It's how the manager, the pilot, actually interacts with the whole system. It's how they get into that data library and use all those cool tools in the toolbox. And believe me, a good, user-friendly interface is absolutely essential. All the power in the world is useless if you can't, well, use it.
And last but not least, you've got the knowledge-based management subsystem. Think of this as having an expert advisor built right into the system. It actually stores specialized knowledge and all these handy rules of thumb, the kind of stuff an expert would know, to help provide smart recommendations when you're facing those really, really tough problems.
So why should you care about any of this? What's the bottom line? It's actually really simple. A good DSS helps you make smarter decisions, which leads to a better business. It cuts down on uncertainty, it champions using hard data instead of just guesswork, and it gives managers the confidence to really explore their options, understand the trade-offs, and be able to stand behind their choices. It's all about bringing some much-needed clarity to what can feel like crippling complexity.
And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. I mean, our Copilot is getting smarter and smarter every single year, right? As these systems keep evolving with things like AI, that line between an assistant and a true partner is going to get pretty blurry. So that leads to the big question. In a world full of these incredibly smart, data-driven Copilots, what's the future role of our own human intuition when it really comes down to making that final call?